it, so.
Only money.
Yeah.
It's only money, right? It's only
Hey,
money we expected.
Pat, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Just going live with YouTube right now.
No, we still got a few minutes. So, okay, thanks. Everything's working on our end, it looks like.
Is Penn gonna be here?
I assume so.
Yeah, when I pulled off, I saw your truck, I'm going,
Yeah.
where's everybody else?
Well, that's kind of why I thought everybody would be here by now. So,
Well, I got a little thrown because nobody was here and I walked in, they said there's no meeting here. She wasn't aware of any meeting downstairs or that anybody was here. And I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to be here, so.
Yeah, no, I should have yelled down at her. She's newer. I don't know if
She said she didn't normally work at that spot, so she wasn't sure.
yeah. She's just started here, within the last month and a half or so.
I thought maybe I had the wrong day. I thought I was going back home, but then Tom showed up. Oh, shoot, I'm ruined your day. Gotta stay here now.
I'm doing a Michigan Society of Professional Engineers conference over yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So it just.
You're doing a conference today?
Yeah.
So, all right, when you're done with this, you gotta do that?
Well, it actually starts at 1 o'clock. So, but it gets credit for my engineering degree. So
You're double billing the city today. Double working.
Right.
I've been double working. Let me tell you, I've been double working.
You more have been like triple working.
It's about 140 hours every pay period now.
Yeah.
Right now, that's what I've been. And this old guy is old.
Yeah.
So
I hope Karen's still working out. She's got to be helping.
Oh, fabulous. We put her on for a year.
Did you?
Yeah.
Is she now? How many days a week? I haven't asked her, but how many days a week is she?
She's in the office 1 day a week.
One.
When the auditors or budget, she'll be there full time.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I knew you'd be happy with her.
Oh,
She's just top notch. Hello, Pam. Speaking of top notch, here she is.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Ran out of time. Sorry.
Oh, we're all right. I don't know where Chris and Dave are though.
Yeah, and Kevin's probably still doing remote, right? He's probably still.
Yeah,
doing-
he says
Is it 10? Is it?
Wait,
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, we are live now, so just if anything you say could be held against you in the court of law.
All right.
I'm trying to get to my agenda here. So once I do that.
Good morning, everyone. Steve Mann is on the line.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm great. And it looks like Chris MacArthur's, you're zooming in today, Chris?
That's correct. Dave's here in the boardroom with me as well.
Okay, so we got everybody here then. And Kevin?
Good morning.
Good morning. And Katie's with us today as well, so I think we got a full house. Kevin, are you 660 phone? Or who's
I'm
660?
not on a phone. I'm doing the computer right now.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That's me. That's Steve Mann.
Oh, sorry, Steve. Got it. Thank
That's
you.
okay.
Once you're ready, I think the technology is right. I guess that's the only thing I'm in charge of. So that part is ready when you are.
Okay, it's after 10 o'clock. Tricia, would you do the roll, please?
Jeff Bunn,
Here.
Kevin Cornish,
Present in Clinton, Michigan, Lenawee County.
David Mackey,
Present Hillsdale, Michigan, Hillsdale County.
Chris Mathis,
Present in person here in Coldwater.
and Tom Tarkowitz.
Present in Coldwater in person. Okay, we have.
We have a quorum.
Thanks, Trish. Can I get a motion for approval of the agenda? First of all, is there any additions? Pam's saying none. So if I could just have approval of the agenda.
Chris Mathis will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Jeff Buttle, second.
Okay, any changes? Not hearing any. Tricia again, please.
Jeff Bud,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Dave Mackey,
Yes.
Chris Mathis,
Yes.
Tom Turkowitz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, we have an agenda. We'll do public comment on agenda items first. I don't see any raised of hands or any coming through from Pat, so
Yeah, so I do see there's one other caller that hasn't been identified yet. If you have your phone number ending in 581 and you want to make a public comment, please press *9 on your keypad and that'll raise your hand for us.
is that Katie?
Oh, yeah, I got the hand raised, so.
What is that Katie?
So I've asked them to unmute. They'll get a message to press *6 and that'll allow them to speak.
Hey, Pat, can you give me permission to share my screen too?
I sure can.
Okay. Not hearing any comments. We're going to move on.
We
Hold
have,
on a second. We still got that one out there. I'm trying to.
That is, sorry, that's Katie Abraham. I don't know why it shows up twice when I come in through Zoom, but it's me.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, Katie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Good morning.
Okay, next on our agenda is approval of the minutes of the April 1st regular board meeting and the April 21st special electronic board meeting. So I'd like to have a motion for approval of those minutes.
Village of Clinton will make the motion.
Shorter will support.
Okay, any comments on the minutes? Okay, Tricia, again, if you would, please.
Jeff Bud,
Yes.
Kevin Cornish,
Yes.
Dave Mackey,
Yes.
Chris Mathis,
yes.
Tom Turkowitz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, next on our agenda is the financial section. And I'll turn that over to Tom.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right.
Just a few comments. Since this report was created last week, we did submit a request to MISO to have collateral returned. They did return about $1 million. And that was from when we posted during that last high point in March. I did want to point out under financials, there is the admin expenses are higher budgeted this month due to an invoice that was paid for the first part of the document scanning. And then the final comment is just kind of a miscellaneous comment. The last CERT payment to Jack Barrel is set up for June 1st. So after the June 1st payment, that should be the last one. And that's all I have unless anyone has any questions on anything else in the report.
Any questions from the board? Oh, okay, then we'll move on to approvals. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
We have approval of the March 21st financial statements and investment reports.
Clinton will make that motion.
Hillsdale will second.
Okay, any questions on the financial statements? Hearing none, Tricia, again, if you would, please.
Jeff Bud,
Yes.
Kevin Cornish,
Yes.
Dave Mackey,
Yes.
Chris Mathis,
Yes.
Tom Turkowitz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, moving on to the approval of the March 21st invoices.
Clinton will make a motion to approve the March 21 invoices.
Union City will support.
Any questions from the board on the invoices? Hearing and seeing none, Tricia, again, if you would, please.
Jeff Bud,
Yes.
Kevin Cornish,
Yes.
Dave Mackey,
Yes.
Chris Mathis,
Yes.
Tom Turkowitz.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. We have a new feature of our agenda, and we welcome Katie Abraham to our board meeting. And at this time, I know Kevin and Jeff are on the board, but we thought this would be a good time for Katie to give us updates of what's happening in Lansing. So Katie, welcome to our board meeting.
Thank you, Tom. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. It's working. Okay. Well, thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to share what's going on at MMEA and on the legislative front, and also learn from you all during your board meeting. So thank you for this opportunity. I have a few bills I want to go over very briefly, and you'll see why it's brief here in a minute, but I'm going to kick it off. There's a marketing bill, House Bill 4236, that you may have seen out there. It's in Chairman Bellino's committee, in the Energy Committee on the House side, and this has been out there for a while. We have had some of our members go and meet with the sponsor, Markinen, in the UP. And currently, so I'll say the bill would remove the cap on the distributed generation program by a utility or an AES. And it does not currently include municipal electric utilities, and we want it to stay that way. So we have had some of our members in the UP meet with the sponsor, express that position with him. He understands that. He has expressed that this bill really is about his frustration with UPCO, and understands that we have 12 munis in the UP. So hopefully it will remain that way. We've talked to Chairman Bellino as well and asked him to please keep us out of this bill. So as far as we know right now, that is the plan. We're watching it closely, and I will obviously let this group and the MMEA board know right away if that changes. But for now, the munis are not included in that bill, but I do get a lot of questions about it. The next one I want to touch on here is a recently introduced Hoytinga bill. Representative Hoytinga is the sponsor. It's House Bills 4715 and 4716. And this caused a bit of an upheaval because MML was given some bad information. MML was told that the munis were exempt from the bill, and they were not exempt from the bill. We are included in the bill, and usually MML reaches out to me on energy bills before they send an email, but in this case, they were given their information and they trusted it, but they were wrong. And I work closely with MML, and that's nothing against MML, but MMEA was aware that we were included in this bill, and it would expand the community solar program. And it brought us under the commission's control in very big ways, which is always a non-starter for us. Anytime they're trying to bring us under the MPSC, we say, no, no, no. So I got together with the co-ops, and we reached out to the bill sponsor, and she understood and said, oops, that was an error. So if this bill comes up for a hearing, which it may or may not, I've heard that this bill doesn't have a lot of legs, and it's unlikely that it would get anything more than one hearing in committee at this point in time. But if it is taken up for a hearing, we have been told by the sponsor that there will be a substitute that will exempt the munis and the co-ops from this bill that would expand the community solar program. So if there's any confusion still out there, MML, we've talked, it's all good, but they felt terrible about that, but that it really wasn't their fault. They were given bad information. So we are currently included. There will be a sub that will exempt us from that community solar program bill. The next one I want to touch on is Senate Bill 103, which this is the ITC bill that I have been working closely with Pam and Paul to make sure that our interests were protected. This is the bill that handles transmission and regional transmission and does away with some of the competition in that process. There has been no movement on this bill now for weeks. I haven't heard of any other companies that have come out in support of the bill besides ITC. There's been a lot of groups such as, MPPA and MSCPA and MMEA who are all working to get ourselves to neutral if this bill moves or goes somewhere. But right now I'm hearing nothing. So I will let you know right away if that changes and this gets legs. But for now, I would say we're in a watching mode on that one. And then I want to update you on the EWR program. As you know, the EWR program under Public Act 342 is set to sunset at the end of this year. MMEA supports that. We worked very hard back in 2016 to make sure that it would sunset. We understood the administrative costs that would come to us, and we really always just want the ability to do the program ourselves and to create the best fit for our own communities on these energy efficiency programs. We have had really, really good meetings with the senators on the Energy Committee. We're trying to take a proactive approach here. We've been meeting with them. The members, have been joining me in those meetings, and I greatly appreciate that support. It's been great. We've just been educating them in case there's any pressure to have a hearing on this. The environmentalists, the greener groups, they don't like that it's sunsetting at all. They want to make sure that we are continuing to do these programs, but right now they're not getting a lot of traction on that front. So we have a lot of support. I'm optimistic. I'm not worried. This program is going to sunset at the end of this year, and if anything changes, I will be sure to let you all know right away. That's a really big one for us. Those are my only legislative updates. I'm happy to take any questions, but I want to just highlight a couple important dates here coming up. May 21st, MMEA is going to have its general membership meeting from 10 to 12, and we would greatly appreciate your participation. We need a quorum to conduct business at that meeting, so please mark that on your calendars, May 21st from 10 to noon. Then we are excited to announce officially the MMEA Fall Conference plans to meet in person. It will be in Lansing, and that will be, the full day will be October 6th. And I appreciate your ability to accommodate us with your meeting on that one. So October 6th will be the full day. We've got great speakers lined up. So that will be in Lansing, and there's more to come on that. But October 6th, full day, and then October 7th in the morning will be the general membership meeting. And then the MEPC conference, which I know some of you attend, will be in person on Mackinac Island, July 29th. Will be the full day on the island. Fantastic speakers lined up for that as well. And then I also just wanted to let you know, or make an offer here. I have been joining MPPA's virtual roadshow. They've been meeting with each member. It's about a 2.5 hour meeting, and they go over everything that MPPA does for the member, but then I tag along at the end and do an overview of MMEA. And so I just wanted to offer that to the members here. If you think that you or your utility or staff at your utility would benefit from something like that, just me, obviously, it's like 15 minutes. I do an overview of MMEA and what we have to offer and what's going on. Please let me know or shoot me an email. I would be happy to do that. It's virtual. And I have a PowerPoint presentation, and it just kind of helps let staff know who may not know as well what MMEA can do and provide. So please let me know if you're interested in that. I'm happy to do that and get it on the calendar. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Katie?
We'll take you up on that offer, Katie. I'll email you sometime. So I'd like to get Jim and Andrew more aware of
Awesome.
services.
Sure. All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Anything from Hillsdale or Clinton?
No, just appreciate the work, Katie.
No, not at this
Thank
time.
you.
Tom.
Can we get a new president of the MMEA? You don't have to answer that.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
I believe there is impeachment rules in the bylaws, so.
Boy, you guys are tough.
They are. I'm used to it, though.
I've done it to Kevin for 28 years now, so we'll see who leaves the door first here between Kevin and myself. So, thank you again, Katie. And I think this is a great little feature that you're doing. And thank you to Jeff and Kevin, I think, for arranging this. And so you're welcome to stay on as long as you like. And now we'll just move over to Pam, and she can do her general manager's report.
Okay, thanks, Tom. And I'm actually going to kick it over to Scott Keyswater to go through the projects.
You hear me okay, Pam?
I can.
Great.
Go ahead, Scott.
You gonna share the screen, Pam? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What are you gonna say? Prior project for, you can see very little, generation during the month of March, just under 16 megawatts compared to a year ago, about 137. So less reduction, obviously, in March of production. From an AFEC standpoint, AFEC had an excellent March generation, exceeded budgets. See their capacity factor just under 74%, utilization factor just slightly above 90. Since March, April, Fremont did enter into a planned maintenance outage. April, I believe it started on the 10th. It was originally planned to be a 2-week outage to do some findings and some delays in control system. They did have to extend that to a week. It did return to service on April 30th. Scroll down.
Scott, you're kind of going in and out again, your voice.
I apologize. From the hydroelectric, slightly above projections for the month of March. Here you can see on the screen the individual unit performance. From the standpoint of year to date, keep scrolling down, bam, from the year to date. Actually, production overall for the project has been close or slightly above projections for the year. So very good first quarter for the hydros. March month itself was not that great, primarily Smithland project due to high water down on the lower Ohio. Smithland was offline for the full month of March. It did return to service on the, I think it was around the 10th of April. Prairie State was slightly below forecast for March, primarily due to a planned outage affecting the overall availability from the plant. Also, there was a forced outage on Unit 1 and a short forced outage on Unit 2 during the month. There you can see from March standpoint, capacity factor about 43%. April has improved. For Prairie State, Unit 1 did return to service on April 5th from that planned outage. There was a slag fall caused outage on Unit 1 that affected generation in April. And from the solar standpoint, actually Coldwater Solar, all solar in our fleet had an excellent March. You can see they're far exceeded the projected P9 needs. And then cold water peaking. I know we have cold water peaking update later on the agenda.
Thanks, Scott. And then I'll turn it over to Chris to give you an update on MISO activities.
So with MISO this month, or actually I should ask first, everybody can hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
So first thing I wanted to go over was the resource adequacy. MISO is still on track to do a 4-season seasonal construct for their capacity rules. They did acknowledge the vote that we had talked about, where the majority of stakeholders opposed MISO's switch from an unforced capacity accreditation for resources to this availability or available capacity, which would, instead of looking at forced outages over the year, it would look at availability of a unit during the, or at least as proposed, the top 5% shortest hours of the reserve margin for the year. In acknowledgement of the overwhelming opposition to that, MISO has slowed it a bit. They were planning to try to file in June. Now they're talking about moving back to September. They've acknowledged a lot of the or at least a majority of the stakeholders, the opposition has been that available capacity would just straight look at the availability of the resources during those hours, those shortage hours. And it wouldn't matter whether you were on a planned outage or forced, whatever, it would count it against you. And MISO has stated, or at least they stated verbally, we recognize that is a concern of people, and they're going to try to find some way to try not to overreach with what they're saying, but somehow put some kind of credit in there for a planned outage over a forced outage. They also recognize that a stakeholder complaint that, as you push the hours down that you're looking at to a really small number of hours, it becomes this huge, crapshoot. It's just flipping a coin as to whether you have a decent rating or not. You could be there, the other 95% of the hours, you could be there available, providing energy, and you just have a little bit of a bad time during those 5%, and it would greatly outsize the impact on your rating. So MISO has said they recognize that, and they will try to come up with something. We'll find out that something next week. The next meeting of their resource adequacy subcommittee is May 12th. They said that they will be back with a revised proposal. And then by June 9th, they will have proposed tariff language. They'll review final tariff language at the September meeting. And then they say they will file in September. We'll have to see if they continue along those lines. There is a group of load serving entities that owns resources that reached out to MISO with a proposal, and opposing available capacity and saying, hey, how about we just change unforced capacity? We'll call it enhanced unforced capacity, and we'll expand the number of hours where it's a little more rigorous, what's called a forced outage versus planned outage, so that more things are treated as forced outages. Because right now the language is pretty liberal, and MISO doesn't really do much in the way of reviewing it and modifying what people are calling planned versus forced outages. So there's probably a lot of really outages are getting called planned that are really forced, that weren't anticipated or weren't planned, projected ahead. Of course, we've been following along with those, and we'll continue to bring you information on those and advocate for the resources to maintain their their credit. The Michigan import study, MISO presented phase 3. The whole study was a request by the Michigan Public Service Commission to look at what it would take to increase the system capability to import more power into Michigan. Phase 3 of the study was to look at increasing the import capability above 6,200 megawatts which is the same as phase 2 of the study. But in phase 3, the Public Service Commission wanted to know what it would take if you looked at a future that was very high in renewable generation. MISO had presented results earlier, and then entities were allowed to come back with proposals. They had a proposal from ITC to rebuild the constrained line that MISO identified as the constraining element. And then DTE came back with 3 alternatives to the ITC proposal. The MISO report was kind of confusing. They really identified one of the DTE proposals as being a catch-all. It would, kind of solve all the problems. But then it was odd because a couple of the other DTE proposals, or both the other DTE proposals, one of them was a switching solution that would have minimal, if any, cost, which would seem that if you would pair it with anything that solved the problem in phase 2, that that would make it a robust solution to cover both phase 2 and 3. And then DTE had a generation solution to add generation in a certain place of the system. And MISO said, well, this is all about transmission, so we're not really going to look at that. MISO is supposed to clean up their report. This was the draft report on phase 3. So they're supposed to clean it up and issue a final report, and they'll go over that with the stakeholders in June, present it to the Michigan Public Service Commission and post it. Big reminder on this one, this was at the request of the Michigan Public Service Commission. This is not a MISO tariff type process to identify a project to increase the import capability. It would be up to the Michigan Public Service Commission and or stakeholders in Michigan if any of these projects were to be built. There's no reliability, or at least at this point, none of these projects have tripped the market efficiency process. So, there would have to be some other avenue to push these to get built. Distributed energy resources. MISO is continuing work on preparing their compliance filing for the FERC Order 2222 on allowing distributed energy resources to directly participate in the electric market at wholesale. FERC did extend, or they granted MISO's request to extend the compliance filing date. So the compliance filing date moves from July 19th to April 18 of next year. One important thing to note is this is the compliance filing. So this will be the markup of the tariff. It is not an implementation deadline. As part of the compliance filing, MISO will have to propose an implementation deadline or timeline, and MISO will most likely, it'll be looking into the future because MISO is going through a market system replacement right now. So all the computer hardware, software is being replaced, and that will, MISO is going to want to be further along in that process before it begins implementing or getting any modules ready to deal with this. They are, in particular, in April, they did talk about the interconnection process, at least at a high level. It sounds like good news. MISO is sticking along the FERC lines of, local interconnection to distribution facilities is a local issue. So it's the state or local utility interconnection process. There are or could be potential issues on coordination. MISO still is looking through how they set up the process to coordinate so that if somebody comes to you and asks to do this, and if you say yes, what are the communication channels so that MISO knows about it, so that the host zone TO knows about it and such, so that everybody else can look at and see the impacts on their system. But it appears, at least on the interconnection front, that things are going, at least okay, if not well. And at FERC, on April 26th, FERC responded or issued an order on a DTE complaint against MISO for including some facilities to interconnect Croswell, Michigan. Croswell was, or I guess is, connected to DTE's distribution system. and they want to change over and connect directly to the ITC transmission system because they've had issues with their distribution interconnections. So DT, or I'm sorry, not DT, ITC came up with, worked with them, came up with a project, and then they put it in the MISO transmission expansion plan. DTE protested that, made a filing at FERC saying that these are actual, they're radials, they shouldn't be considered transmission, they're not networked, and it shouldn't be in the zonal rates. What FERC did is they said, okay, well, we're going to hold the docket in abeyance. DTE go to the Michigan Public Service Commission, get a determination from them as to whether these facilities are transmission or distribution, come back to us with that determination, and we'll decide whether they got it right or not. So we'll have to see how that one goes. Just one thing to keep in mind with all this going on, previously we saw one of these where consumers had protested inclusion of a interconnection radio into the MTEP. And, that one, the Michigan Public Service Commission said, no, these are not network transmission facilities. FERC agreed with them. And so those were pulled out. It's not a reason not to do a project, but I guess if you're talking with ITC, METC about anything, building any facilities around you for a new delivery point, upgrading existing delivery point, and if they're telling you that, oh yeah, we'll just roll this into the rates and you won't pay the whole thing, just something you might want to keep in mind. Consumers and DTE have been watching these. We have at least got now 2 cases where they protested. One was definitively decided that no, it needed to get pulled out of the zonal rates and be assigned directly to the customer. We've got another one. We'll have to see how it goes, but just for your planning purposes, you might want to keep that in mind. There was also a FERC docket where METC ITC had filed to recover costs for setting up charging stations for electric vehicles throughout their footprint, and FERC rejected the filing. They did reject it without prejudice, saying that, well, the filing just said, hey, we have this project, here are the costs, we want to recover it in rates. And FERC said, well, you didn't give us enough detail to let us determine whether the project is actually a transmission-related project and under our jurisdiction or not. So METC ITC could come back and file again if they're going to, if they can provide information to classify the facilities as transmission-related. We'll just have to see what they're going to do with that. And then real quick, the last issue we had was just MISO continues to put out information about the 2021 Arctic weather event from late February or mid-February. The data we have in this report comes from the MISO Market Monitor. No big surprise, it was costly. Average energy prices were up significantly over 2020. This is obviously being pushed by gas prices. Also, average and peak loads grew over 2020. Congestion costs went through the roof. The first quarter in MISO for this year, mostly driven off of that week around the Arctic weather event. The congestion was more than all the congestion totaled in 2019 just for that 2-month period. So we really hadn't finished the first quarter when the Market Monitor put this report out. Just data on that. So if there are any questions about any of the stuff we reported on, or if there are any questions on any other MISO stuff that you may have heard about.
Chris, this is Tom. I do have a question on this Croswell MISO. ITC is putting a 3.5-mile line into our new substation. And they're talking that, they're paying for all of it. Could that change or is there a surprise ahead?
If it would depend on if METC, or I would assume consumer, DTE probably wouldn't look at this one, consumers might. They could, if if they thought it was a radial line, they could protest its inclusion in the zonal rates. I mean, I'll apologize. I don't have the information on it. You would want somebody, you would want an electrical engineer to look at it and go through the FERC 7-factor test to determine whether or not it's networked. If you have if there's already another or multiple lines in your substation, this is a new line, it may qualify as networked, and it may be a very clear-cut case. Yes, this goes into niche rates and everybody pays for it. But depending on how the setup is with it, if it is radial, then someone could protest it, and it, might end up getting taken out and have to be a direct assign to you.
If you send me a single line of it, I'd be happy to have our transmission engineers look.
Okay, I will do that. Yeah, because they're starting to build that. Next year, the substation will start work probably the end of this year. And it's sort of coincidental because tomorrow morning I'm having breakfast with Jeff Dorr and Daryl, and I'm just sort of unusual for them to do that. So I'm curious if this might be something, but so even though it's gone through MISO-Q and everything, they could come back after the fact and say that Marshall's going to have to pay for some of that line.
Yeah, I mean, MISO just takes whatever METSI ITC tells them. ITC METSI, they put together a list and say, okay, here's all the facilities we're going to build, and this is what we're including in our zonal transmission rate. MISO just boom, rubber stamps that. And if another customer wants to look at it, and if they can come up, if it doesn't pass the FERC 7-factor test, then it could get pulled out of it, or not can. If somebody protests it, then yes, it would get pulled out of the zonal rate, and the customer would have to be the one that would pay for all of the cost of it.
Okay, thank you, Chris. That was very helpful.
Core is dealing with a similar issue with ITC, kind of that along the same lines. We have radials that feed our greenhouse, and the ITC thought that we kept them when we sold them our transmission line that connected the three sources. Well, in reality, when they went back to the agreement, they bought them and put them into the rates, and now they're trying to unwind it because they realized they never should have bought those radials. And there's one it's very short. There's like 2 pole spans right in one, and then the other one are 6 pole spans. So they're looking at setting up a separate holding company to hold those assets, and then they would still do the maintenance and take responsibility of them, and then charge us a monthly fee. So, there's ways around what they're wanting to do, but.
Yeah, they mentioned to us on the radial line we built a couple years ago to our north substation. We own that piece, but they're talking about possibility of taking that over from us. But this one I'm a little more concerned with.
A little bit longer though. It's not a little short piece.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Hey, Chris, I got to go back to one of the first things, and this might be premature, but is there any indicative items about or have we looked at what it could potentially cost us if MISO goes to this 4 CP or seasonal construct as opposed to the one time now? And the reason I ask is, as an agency, we are a winter peaking capacity. Wouldn't they have a big impact on it, especially when Marshall's coming on with their marijuana greenhouses? That would have a significant impact on the agency and directly Coldwater and Marshall, correct?
Yes, it could. You'd have, and I'll admit, I don't have an idea of how it would compare to today. Because today you set this summer peak, and that's the capacity you maintain for the entire year. When we shift to a 4 season, one would yes, you could, if you're a winter peaker, I assume your winter peak would be higher. You'd still be on the summer peak, and then your fall and your spring peaks would probably, I don't know, fall and spring. You think those would be higher than summer, or will those still be?
It depends. I mean, because
Yeah.
if depending on what if they're using a strict, September through or October through December, they're going to they'll hit in the third quarter because they'll be on in September potentially, and then they don't always shut off in March, so they could hit in 3 of the 4 seasons, and that adds 38 megawatts plus whatever your load is, and that will drive our capacity much higher. If I'm understanding.
And one of the pieces that we don't even have to even be able to look at it is, right now with the summer, MISO gives us the coincident peak hours so that we can, look at those and compare and see how far off, we are, but we don't know what the footprint coincident peak hours are going to be for the fall, spring, or winter. I mean, the only one we have is the summer.
But I'm just saying that could be a significant financial thing.
I mean, because that's the thing is, yes, your non-coincident peak does matter because that's what you forecast to, but then you adjust it back to what the footprint coincident peak is. So if you're peaking in the winter, if you're peaking on the footprint peak, then you'll have a more capacity. But if you're non-coincident with the footprint peak, it might not be that big an impact on you.
I think after we see the proposal next week, we could.
Still premature.
Yeah,
Okay.
We don't know the.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
But at some point, I'm just trying to think ahead of what that potentially could cause. It could cause, especially since we filed jointly, he's bringing on load, and then they add 38 meg. I mean, that could be significant. Okay, thank you, Chris.
Oh yeah, definitely, and especially because you are definitely pretty far off coincident with the summer peak, so that helps you in not having to provide as much capacity. If in those other seasons you become closer to coincident with the footprint peak, then that would mean you'll have to be providing more capacity.
There's almost no way we would miss it, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Great.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Thanks again, Chris. Pam, anything you want to add to?
I think that's it. Everything else is covered under action items.
All right. Well, let's move on to Union City withdrawal update. I can tell you from Marshall, on May 17th, we'll be presenting the resolution to our city council for approval for the allocations of AMPGS and AFEX. So I'll just add that. I'm not sure. Chris, you want to give an update from Union City, your dates?
May 10th, we would do that, which would be this Monday, would be a resolution. And we did the special meeting on April, well, the one just before, after we did the one here, April 22nd, we did the special meeting approving the WDS agreement stuff. And so nothing new other than that right now. So
okay. I know, Steve, you're on. Do you want to give us any updates or questions or comments you might have?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. My colleague Jeff Labine, who's in our Ann Arbor office, he's working on documenting this. When we had a call with Pam and Tom Sillison a couple days ago, worked out a couple final details that he needed. So we're hopeful that we'll have some documentation ready in the next week or so. I did send to Tom, to you and Pam, a little earlier this morning, I apologize for the delay, a request that the board does consider granting consent waiver for our representation in this matter. As I've previously noted, we represent several of the members in other unrelated matters. And in this matter, we're drafting and preparing the documentation on behalf of MSCPA. So if it's okay, I would ask that the board consider authorizing us to represent MSCPA in this documenting of the withdrawal of Union City, notwithstanding our representation of the other agency members in unrelated matters. And then we'll also ask those other members separately to provide their consent as well.
Okay, yeah, Steve, I'm first chance I've had to read your email here, so.
Yeah, I apologize. I know it was sent this morning.
That's okay. I just said a meeting outside the office and then I came to here, so. So what Steve is recommending, reading from his email, that the board consider a simple motion along the lines of, I move to authorize Miller Canfield to represent MSCPA in documenting the withdrawal of the Village of Union City, notwithstanding Miller Canfield's periodic representation of agency members in unrelated matters.
That motion is so moved by Clinton.
Or from Union City.
Okay. I guess questions from the board, or Steve, anything you want to add to that? Appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, no problem. We did review those documents, the resolutions and the assignment agreements that AMP provided for Union City's AMP assets. And we did add some language in there to make those contingent upon the withdrawal being complete.
Yeah, so we, as Steve mentioned, we had a call, I forget when it was, earlier this week. So they're working on the withdrawal agreement. They are recommending that all of the members of MSCPA do take that back to get their councils to approve that. So we're hoping, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but after today, he wanted the minutes from this meeting, or the approval from the minutes from our last meeting, to work into the agreement, and then hoping to get that out next week, with the goal that this board would approve it at the June meeting. But all of you would have to approve that back home as well.
Yeah, that's correct. Essentially, the agreement's going to be between Marshall and Coldwater and Union City, but we think it's important to have Hillsdale and Clinton also acknowledge the agreement and recognize the transfer of entitlements that are taking place.
Clinton just has one minor detail. The MSCPA board will meet on Thursday, June 3rd. We don't meet till Monday, June 7th. Oh, I've got MMEA on June 10th. Can we push South Central to a different time after the 7th, but not the 10th? Or if it's the 10th, just not 10 to noon? I just hate to call a special meeting.
Is it important who approves it first?
Oh,
No,
question.
the order of approval is not important.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Solves that.
That document, when would we have it in our hands?
We're hoping next week.
Okay, because as I said, I was going to my council with the AMP allocations on the 17th. It'd be really great if I could do both functions at the same night. Otherwise, we have to go to June 7th. So
It probably won't matter because our board meeting was last night, so I can't go to the our June 2nd board meeting, and we're going to do all three at one time. Is what we were kind of doing, and then we won't have our. It won't go to council until June. Goes to us a second. It'll be the 14th. Will be the first time it can go to city council, and I don't know. Does it need just one? It's just a resolution, so it's not an ordinance. So it just needs one hearing. So we wouldn't have approval for all three until the 14th.
okay.
I'd probably be June, unless we did a special meeting. I don't have a meeting between May 10th and June 14th, so.
Okay. So it looks like some of us will be doing June 14th. Potentially I might do May 17th. Kevin would be June 7th. And then I'm not sure on Hillsdale. So knowing that we got those dates coming up, and once we get the document, then we can process it.
Is there anything?
Yeah,
beyond-
that sounds good.
Is there anything beyond that? Once we do that, is there more work to be done? I can't remember.
So
I'm
there's
losing
some,
track a little bit. There's
some cleanup of the articles of incorporation and bylaws. But according to
Yes.
Canfield, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. That can be done after the fact. I mean, it's nothing that has to be
Yes.
done. He just thinks it would be good to tidy it up.
Is there anything
Correct.
that would require, I guess I'm just asking Cord, that speed that process up, or is that still okay, the dates? I mean, we could do a special board meeting if we had to, if we needed. But usually it's 14 days.
ours is 42, and we can't do this one until this board meeting June 2nd, was it?
Yeah, I think.
So it's not that much different between, I'd say, 12 days.
I was thinking more of the AMP is a longer process though, isn't it?
That is.
But so this is but that'll drag that out for months, not months, but at least 2 more months probably, if I recall.
I think we were going to try to take it to the June board meeting.
That's gotta go to participants.
Meeting, which we can schedule that at any time. We can do it virtually now. So
Okay.
I'm trying to get them all done by the end of June.
Oh, that answers
That's
the
our goal.
question. Okay, so if we all do it in June,
Yeah.
we're fine.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And maybe going back to Kevin's question about moving the June, whatever the first meeting in June is for this board, we can also, if we need to do something at the end of June, we can. But I think it's all heading in a good direction. So.
Well, I guess might be a stupid question, but do we have when all this stuff passes, as we're thinking it will, if this goes, will there be a date assigned to when it takes effect, or will that be immediate? Like if there's board action, will that be? I'm just trying to figure out what I need to do what I need to do on our end so that I have everything in line.
I've told Miller Canfield that we were shooting for July 1st to go into effect.
So I should be shooting for
the end of June 30th, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the fiscal year, Union City would not be part of the, yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Steve will be sending us things that our city councils and village boards need to do. And Steve, anything else at this time?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a good update.
One more update, and Chris alluded to this, but the wholesale distribution service agreement, the novation and assignment that is fully executed. And then the new agreement between consumers and Union City is now fully executed as well. So that's cleaned up. The other outstanding one, which I'm having trouble getting a response from Eagle Creek Renewables. So I'm continuing to push on that on the assignment of the UP Hydro, but they were supposed to send me a draft and I haven't seen anything yet.
Would there be any issues with, say, MISO and our deposits and how that all works? More from a financial, not legally.
I mean, we're going to have to remove Union City from our network, our NHTSA. And I've talked to Chris, he's in the process of adding, they're going to have to set up their own. I can't think of anything that's going to impact deposits at MISO.
Okay. I just wondered if there's anything that, I mean, it's not like we can't settle it later, but I mean, I just don't want it to sneak up on us. I know we get cash, investments won't be an issue. Not like we had to sell investments. We have a lot of cash on hand. We don't have it in, out in CDs. So I'm just trying to think of when the financial bookkeeping rolls through.
Tom, is there anything you can think of?
No, I think other than what we just talked about, I mean, we'll probably want to update cash balances as of 6/30/2021, and then whatever Union City's portion of those are, we'll have to work out how to transfer over.
And Tom is working on the budget, and I guess he's doing 2 budgets at this point, one with Union City, one without, just so we're ready, just in whichever way it goes.
So the only thing would be that, because MISO holds our dollar, so it'll take probably July or August to wrap up all the final accounting stuff. I'm guessing it would have to, because you can't just write a check on July 1. I'm assuming MISO's not going to release their dollars.
There would be some things that I think you could do right away, but some things you would probably might take a little while to unwind.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, and Pam is right. Currently doing the budget that for the June meeting with Union City. And then once everything goes through, I can revise the budget to remove them from that.
I have a question, I guess, for Jeff. You said 3 things. We talked about what Steve is giving us. We have the allocations for MTS and AFAC. What was the third?
The actual withdrawal agreement. And that's what we were waiting on, is to get the actual agreement so we can just do it all.
That's
one
what
time.
we were talking
Yeah.
with Steve.
He was
Okay.
counting AFECT and AMGS as 2.
AFAC, and yeah,
Okay, I had combined them and.
Yeah.
So, okay. Good.
no, that was the 3 that I had. The 3 different resolutions or agreements.
All right.
You mentioned Eagle Creek. They indicated they didn't have any problem doing a direct agreement, right?
When I
Or
talked
they
to the
indicated-
commercial person, yeah,
Okay.
he said it was, he didn't think it'd be any problem, and he was gonna have their legal draft this assignment agreement, and that's what I don't have yet, so.
Any other questions? We do have a motion on the floor. Any other questions before we vote on this motion? And Tricia, I do have it in writing. I forwarded to you. I'm not sure if you got it yet, but you'll have that. So any other questions before we vote on this motion? And this is again to authorize Miller Canfield to represent MSCPA in documenting the withdrawal of the Village of Union City, notwithstanding Miller Canfield's periodic representation of agency members in unrelated matters. No questions? I will, Tricia, if you would.
Jeff Bud,
Yes.
Kevin Cornish,
Yes.
Dave Mackey,
Yes.
Chris Mathis,
Yes.
Tom Tarkowitz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Steve, anything else we need to deal with today on this?
No, not at all. Thank you.
Okay, Pam, anything?
The cost of Steve doing that, or the Miller Canfield doing that, did we discuss how that was, is that the 50/50? Is that part of that part, or is it part of the group? Or did we not discuss that part?
I think we discussed.
My understanding it was 50/50, and then you were splitting it based on the 2/3, 1/3, whatever it is.
Right,
Yeah.
that falls under, that cost of the Miller
Yeah.
Canfield falls under that, then I would assume. But I'm just,
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Some of these final bills we won't know on July
Right.
1st, so they'll be
right,
resolving some little minor items.
Tom, you feel you have pretty clear direction on the splits?
For the legal invoices,
Well, all the ones that are coming up, I guess, we quite,
yeah, I do. I mean, I think there's a couple things we might need to talk through, such as, for example, when we get the second invoice for the document scanning, I'm not sure when that might be coming, if that's after July 1st, how does that, will there be an invoice to Union City for a portion of that at that point, since it was related to prior? I think there'll be a few things like that. I might have to make some notes, and we might have to have a
okay.
discussion.
that would be fair, we're fine with that, we're not gonna.
Yeah. For the most part, I think I should be okay, but there might be a few little.
Okay.
This should be we're gonna go through, most of the stuff there is financial records, so my finance director and his assistant finance director are going through and they're gonna try to clean out, so we don't just make copies of stuff we won't need. So we're gonna try to pare that down before so it might be a couple months still before we get that even done.
Okay. All right, good. Again, thank you, Steve. Moving on to the cold water peaking project update.
I'll give you a quick update on MISO. So we're in the study phase where it's the study by the affected system, so essentially PJM. And that study is delayed. Again, the latest, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but the latest is that we would not need to make a decision until the end of June, and that's if it's not delayed again. So the earliest we're going to have this, the study is going to be early June. So. And then Scott, we did enter into an agreement with Fishbeck on the air permitting. I don't know, Scott, if there's any update on that.
I just say that is correct. We did enter into the agreement with Fishbeck, working to gather some information for Fishbeck to perform their modeling to support the application. Looking likely to have an application potentially late May, early June for submittal.
That's really it.
I don't, hey, Kevin, did you hear back from Courtney? Were you still having him look at that?
John is working on stuff for us regarding the cold water project, yes.
Okay.
Also, as of last night, John is working with us on getting into the project, so.
Greatly makes me feel better.
No final yet, but
Yeah, no, just,
I gave the job last night at 4:30, so.
okay, yeah. That just has big impacts for everything, so.
Yeah.
Speaking on that, and maybe, I don't know if this is Chris, so just so we can put on record, the Hucks thing is a dead in the water, never be brought up again. We didn't qualify, it didn't tell us why we didn't qualify, but this, for the stated reason, there was not firm transmission from, like, say, Prairie State sub, right?
We did not qualify. We can try to apply again next year, and we can do that. But yeah, we did not get approval this time.
Okay, no, I just wanted,
Yep.
it's worth us even doing again next year. I just put that behind us. So,
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Audit proposals, Pam or Tom or?
Are you going to pull it up, Tom?
Yeah, I can pull it up if you can
I'll stop.
share. There we go. Are you able to see the presentation?
We are.
Okay. So I put together a few slides based on the proposals that we received, the RFP. So just some background, the RFP went out on March 31st. We sent it to 5 firms based on recommendations from the board. The deadline for submitting a proposal to the RFP was April 30th. We did receive several questions during the process. And I just wanted to note that responses to all questions that we received were sent out to all potential bidders so that everyone had the same information. The information we requested is we requested a demonstration of qualifications, competence, experience, and capability. We asked for a work plan, including an explanation of their audit methodology. Wanted a timeline for their audit. A lot of firms provided references from past experiences and comparable projects. And we asked for a number of the firms for a number of individuals that'll be working on the project, those individuals' qualifications and their experience for anyone that they want to assign to this engagement. Most firms provided, or all firms provided all that information. We requested pricing for a minimum of 3 years in the RFP, starting with fiscal year 21. And then proposals were allowed to include additional years at the bidder's discretion. The next slide has pricing information on it. There isn't any issue with showing that slide, is there?
No.
No, I think it's fine.
Okay. So kind of looking at the proposals, we received 4 proposals from the 5 firms, Baker, Tilly, Maynard, Raymond, and Yo. All submitted proposals. I provided copies of these proposals to distributed to the board on May 3rd, just last Monday. All firms did submit complete proposals. And the pricing by firm for the next 3 years is at the bottom of this slide. Baker Tilly did commit to not increasing their fees by more than 5% in any subsequent years after fiscal year 23. And Yo and Yo said that they did provide pricing for fiscal year 24 and 25. I put that down there in the bottom. But for comparison purposes, I just looked at the next 3 years. So that's just a summary of what we received. I didn't know if anyone had any questions at the slides or on the proposals, or if anyone has any preference on direction.
Tom, one question. Did Pipe Moran not bid?
They did not. I did not receive anything from them. No.
Really? Interesting. Okay. And I do know though, just for the group, I did talk to the local firm. They just felt they didn't have the capacity, and so they opted not to bid at this time.
Paul?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they declined. So just in case anybody's wondering.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
This is, thank you for doing through this. I know it was a lot of work to throw this out there, but it's brought it down from $25,000 down to 18.5. I feel this is maybe a little higher than I still think it should be because of the newness of what's going to, how we're re-evolve. But again, obviously the numbers don't lie, so this must be the price. So I'm very good with Baker Tilly moving forward.
As the other finance person, I would like to thank Jeff for his continual looking out for our finances, i.e. encouraging us to bid. Tom, I'd like to thank you for all the work you put in to put out a good bid document. With that, I'd like to make a motion that I guess we would award the auditing contract to Baker Tilly for the next 3 years.
Hillsdale will second that.
Okay. Any comments? I do want to throw out, I have no trouble with Baker Tilly. When originally we did this, we were talking about sometimes it's good just to rotate. And I'm looking over to the CPA and the group here. Is your comfort level of continuing with the same firm?
Yeah, I would always like to change every blue moon, but our operations are shrunk so much. At this point, it's price.
Okay.
For me, I don't think we would get anything value for them saying, "Hey, it's not like we have operations anymore." It's all contracts, so it's very cut and dried, and that's why I thought the price is still kind of high. But they also have risk, but the risk is nominal because we're obviously not going to sue ourselves if there was a problem. So the risk is pretty low on this, and the accounting is 7 checks a month. So it's, I'm being a little facetious, but it's greatly reduced. But I think I would not want to put somebody through all that has to happen for changing auditors, because it's a lot of work for the incoming people. They got to sign up internal controls. It's easier just to stay with Baker Tilly at this point. And, this is a commodity at this point in my mind.
Good, thank you. Okay, any other questions? There's a motion in support to accept a 3-year engagement with Baker Tilly. Tricia, if you would, please.
Jeff Bud,
Yes.
Kevin Cornish,
Yes.
Dave Mackey,
Yes.
Chris Mathis,
Yes.
and Tom Tarkowitz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
The other thing, just to confirm, Baker Tilly does do the MPPAs as well. So there's a little more familiarity there.
Yeah.
Okay. Next on our agenda is a work session date. Yes, Pam.
So my thought there, Tom, a couple things. Last year, I think we had a work session to go through the budget. So we'd like to do that sometime in late May.
Okay.
before the board approval of the budget in June. I think before that, Tom was going to reach out and have a meeting with the finance committee as well to go through it before that. The other thing is, I'd like to have a detailed discussion on capacity options and resources with the latest auction, get some indicative market prices and begin the discussion on how we're going to file our amendment to our capacity filing with the PSC. So I think that would be important to do here. And hopefully we'll have the result of the MISO study too, if we do it late May.
Will you want to take any action at that meeting? Do we want to, instead of calling it a work session, call it a special meeting? That way we could take action if there was something.
I'm fine
I'm
with
just
that.
thinking with things are moving along with Union City.
Yeah.
I guess I'd prefer to call it a
That's fine.
special meeting in case something comes up that we need to take care of.
Okay.
Good idea.
Okay, looking at dates, which week are you looking at, Pam? Week of May 24th, or that'd be 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Is that Labor Day or Memorial Day weekend? Or is that the weekend prior?
It's coming,
It's
the
the week
Memorial Day is
prior.
the 31st, it's
Yeah.
the weekend at the end, so.
May 26th? I'm just starting to throw out dates.
I know, that was about the only date that I've got a commitment. But if that's the only date that works, I will try to find somebody to take care of it, so.
Wednesdays are the worst for me.
Pardon?
Wednesdays are hard for me. They're difficult with staff.
So what
Well, I
about
can
the
do-
25th or 27th?
Those both work out great for me.
They're good for me.
25th is good for Clinton. 27th is hard. I have a small urban meeting that I have to be at. It's Zoom at 11. So if we did earlier, I'm fine.
The 25th would work.
David, how about you?
The 25th will work for us.
Okay. All right.
I would need morning. That's the only request.
I would prefer morning too. 25th.
Kevin, are you going to be able to drive at that point? I mean,
I'm hoping to find out on the 17th that this darn thing gets off my foot because I'm really tired of it and it is my right foot. So the odds are I would still be a Zoom at that point just because to drive an hour and a half each way would be a little awkward just coming out of the cast.
okay. All right. So May 25th, Tuesday, May 25th is going to be the date.
Time?
Pam, you want to start
Start at
possibly
9?
at 9?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so 9 o'clock, May 25th, a special meeting. Yes, just for the record, anybody feel we need a motion or could,
That's a special meeting? We don't.
I don't think we do either, so. Okay, so it's established, 9 o'clock, May 25th, special board meeting. And then Pam will be getting the agenda out.
Are you thinking through lunch? Do I need to worry about getting lunch? We can worry about that later if you
Okay.
think.
I mean, I would think we would be done in 3 hours, but
Okay. All right, let's try that.
If we need to, just
Okay.
we can arrange.
Okay. All right. Yes,
No, never mind.
okay.
Well, I guess I should say, so there's a possibility, we're still closed at City Hall. We're thinking about opening. So in the county, I think we'd still be qualified to do it if Kevin had to Zoom in. So I'm just trying to think of this electronic thing. If something were to change, that's the only thing that may require us to be in person.
Mhm.
I don't think so in Branch County at this time.
You have a county emergency order?
Yeah,
in
and
Branch?
the city, but we're covered under the county.
Right.
For the agencies, what they're, every county, are you in Calhoun? You consider Calhoun?
We're a branch.
You-
We have a little bit of Calhoun, but
Okay.
we really branch.
So you're covered, I think Dave said Hillsdale has a emergency and you guys do, right?
Right.
So as long as Kevin does, they're in whatever county he's in, I think that covers it.
Well, it's,
Clinton has, well, Lenawee County has a state of emergency through July, I believe.
We're
I
good.
think we'll be
Just to
good.
where the meeting is taking place, wouldn't it just fall to that, or?
It would be branch counties that we would have to be under.
Yeah.
But I think Steve said that it's also in your own jurisdictions,
Oh.
is what he said, but we're covered anyway in
Okay,
branch.
yep.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we've got a date and time and we just got to get an agenda and we'll be all set. Okay, other business. Public comment on non-agenda items.
I don't
Public
believe there's,
comment, Pat?
I don't believe there's anyone on the call that would be providing public comment. No, the only
Okay.
two
All
phone
right.
numbers are Kevin and I can't remember the gal's name, but they're
Okay.
known entities.
Hearing or seeing none, we'll move on. Commissioner comments, members, municipal update. We'll start with you, Kevin and Clinton.
Just the same things I talked about last week with the substation, trying to figure out some of the financing, some road construction projects, getting ready to start. We've got the water main project actually is started, and just normal springtime stuff.
Okay, thanks. Dave in Hillsdale?
Yeah, we had a special millage election on Tuesday. Happy to say that passed. So that was for a 10-year millage on roads and leaf collection, a curbside loose leaf collection. So that passed by about 66 votes, which wasn't too bad. We had about a 14% voter turnout, which was up from historic special elections. We're finishing up a bridge and road project, and getting ready to start our road projects for the year. I'll let Chris add into that because he's got a number of things going on.
Yeah, so we're working on the industrial water tower project, waiting on word from the contractor there, but that's supposed to be getting started this month. 2 water main and sewer main projects, road reconstruction and a couple streets uptown. We are doing a complete sewer evaluation, so that's ongoing. Taplin's doing that for us. Other than that, just still working on the voltage upgrade with the electric, so that's all I've got.
Dave, what was your millage?
It was for four mills, with 3.5 going towards roads and 1/2 towards leaf collection.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it actually is kind of a little a good accomplishment, because the day of the election, that morning, the mayor came out on social media against it, which of course spread through the community, but the vote went the way of the millage, so that gave the rest of the council a good direction.
Dave, how much estimated money does that bring in per year? Because that's got to be a nice increase in your road funding.
About 455,000 a year.
Wow, good for you. That'll help your roads out a lot.
Yeah, and we're parlaying that with doing special assessment districts on all road projects. So between the two of them working together, we should get a really good momentum going.
Good for you.
was your council or the mayor split on the vote when you put it on the ballot?
It was a 6-3 vote, six to put on the ballot, and 3, including the mayor, voted to not put it on the ballot.
Interesting.
Yeah. But congrats, we've got our project starting here from our millage vote, so it'll it'll show when people come to your community. So,
Yeah, that's big. That's
Yeah.
huge.
yeah. Chris, Union City?
Still working on our substation project. We had several semi trucks show up today. We've got our transformer regulators, switch gear, all that stuff. So later this month, we'll be going to temporary generation for a few weeks. We had to push it back a couple weeks because we had some other distribution areas to correct or to fix. We hired we've only had 3 fire chiefs in 100 years, and we hired our 4th one just the other day. So we keep them a long time, but so we're hoping to get another 30 years out of him. That's our average. But I think that's it. That's all we got.
Jeff?
Go ahead, Jim. Start off with what you're working on.
Spending a lot of time looking at, green alternatives and trying to keep our industrial clients happy, trying to figure out the economics of combined heat and power to the greenhouse from Project 4 and what that might look like. So that's keeping us busy.
Our fiber project's still up and running. We've got 64 customers already. And so we're just in our first node. So we're hopefully moving that forward still. Road project out here. So don't come on Monroe Street. You won't be able to pull in the parking lot. But so water main, we got some frontier things in the way, but that's primary things for us.
Good. And as you know, Ed Rice retired last Friday. So I'm taking back my old job that I used to do. Our hydro rehab started this week, so they're working on that. That'll be until November. I mentioned ITC earlier. They're building a new substation and 3.5 miles of transmission, and then that's supposed to be done by the end of 22. Our one greenhouse has 7 of their 9 grow rooms growing, and the other 2 will be up and running by the end of June. And we start our street program, $3 million worth of work next week. So that'll be busy. And I think what else we had. I can't lean on Ed to give you more on the electrical side, but it's very busy. We've also had our mega site. There are three companies that are looking at it all of a sudden. So we don't know what changed this year, but again, they're looking all over the United States. So it's just a question what we can provide. But I know the last one, I think in full build out wanted 260 megawatts. So we just keep sending things to state. They'll contact us Monday and want it in by Wednesday. So that's typical. So someday we'll land something there. So that's all I have.
On your marijuana, is that, I still haven't seen a lot of load in growth yet. Are they still planning on the load growth, or is that still up in the air?
Well, the one I mentioned, Michigan Pure Med, they're basically, it is not the lighting. It's going to be the air handling units, which will be kicking on here in the next couple of months. And so MPM will have, their build out of the first phase. Cresco Labs actually will be starting up this month. So we'll see that load growth with probably this summer. So you are correct. You haven't seen it, but I think here in a couple of months.
We'll start.
Well, and with Cresco, they're not using LEDs, so they'll have lighting and cooling load. So, I would say, ask me that question in September. I think we'll have seen quite a bit, so,
I was just curious.
yeah. So,
Cold water, we our special use permit offered, we have one grower ourselves that's just 2,000 plants. So I don't know how many rooms that would be in compared to yours. Yours is tens of thousands of plants, I believe.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I think a 2,000, that's maybe one room.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
I used to know this square foot per plant, but
No, that's fine.
yeah, so it's a very different industry, and so we also had seemed like a lot more commercial requests coming through, trying to find land. That's our biggest problem. We don't have the land for commercial development. Okay, anything else for the good of the group? David, Kevin?
Nothing with me, thank you.
Okay, all right, I guess we will adjourn the meeting. Enjoy all.
See you guys.
Thank you, everyone.